This is Silicon Valley Forensics, and this is our presentation on analytical rebuttals. So I think it's important to pose the question, what is an analytic? And this is the dictionary definition of an analytic. Logic, the science of logical analysis. It's important to understand analytics because this is the backbone and the foundation to building arguments and refuting them in public forum debate. So these are the types of analytics. First, we start with analogies, which are basic comparisons that allow the judge or even sometimes your opponents to understand your argument and to better understand the debate itself. It's important to remember to keep these analogies simple in order for the judge to understand them. The next is weighing, which is simply stating that the impact of your argument or all your arguments are greater than your opponent's arguments. And this is typically done in later rounds, such as the final focus, in order to summarize the debate and present this to the judge. Next is the analytic argument, which is building an argument based on a logic and reasoning and building a chain of this logic in order to present to the judge for them to understand the impact of this in a certain argument and present it to your opponents as well. Next, there's the analytic response, which is responding to your opponent's argument with your own reasoning, and this is traditionally called blocks, which I'll explain later in the presentation. So how do you create analytics? One possible way of doing this is identifying weak spots in the opponent's case. And this is typically done in crossfire, where you would question your opponent and try to find certain flaws in their case in order to bring it up in your rebuttal or in other later rounds. Next, there's alternative causes, and this is done when an opponent's argument can actually backfire on them because there's a impact that their argument has against their own case. And this is important because it also builds credibility with the judge as well as allowing you to outweigh in some cases. Next, there's non-unique, which is basically stating the status quo would happen in the resolved world. Next, there's weighing, which is basically stating, once again, that your opponent's arguments are less or have less of an impact than yours and presenting this to the judge. Next, we have bright lining, which is basically setting a standard for what is topical and non-topical in debate. And this is important to set this framework at the beginning of debate in order to provide this to the judge and to your opponents in order to weigh and ultimately decide who's the winner of the debate. Next, there is contradictions, which is finding weak spots in your opponent's case and then capitalizing on this and presenting it to the judge by with your own information or by doing any things on the rest of this list. So how do you improve analytics? So specifically for a topic, it's important to have topic knowledge, which is understanding common arguments of a case, common evidence that is used by people for certain arguments, and this general knowledge of what is happening in the argument and how if you walk into a round, what are you most likely to run by, and what are the more creative or more unique arguments that people may have. And in order to do this, with topic knowledge, you should also have block writing. And to better understand this, you have to understand what a block is. A block is evidence that is used to refute a certain argument. And this is common in rebuttals because you would find the arguments that your opponents have, and you would present the blocks that you've already written. And this is very common in public forum debate. Additionally, it's common to come across these blocks yourself and then write blocks to go against them as well, in the case that your opponents have. Next, it is important to understand common questions or complications that would occur during crossfires. And this is important when an opponent is trying to pin you down or to identify something wrong with your case. And you should be aware of the things that people could identify and certain blocks that they could use in rebuttals. And this comes with topic knowledge as well. In general, it's important to continue practicing analytic rebuttals, whether it's through crossfire or whether it's through block writing. And this, in the end, would allow you to gain more knowledge of the topic itself, as well as debate skills in these rounds.